I knew something was happening, but I wasn't quite sure what. I love my breaking news. Thanks, Chris. Hey, Marilyn. Hey, Al. Oh, Marilyn's husband. Sorry, remind me your name.
AJ.
AJ, that's right. I was going to say Andy, and I didn't want to say it wrong. So AJ. Oh my gosh, we've got Marilyn and AJ from Florida. We got Al from New Hampshire. And I heard a little bird told me, put a little something in my ear, but I don't have details. So why don't we start with Al? I do know a little bit about Al because him and I went to Concord, New Hampshire today. So do you want to let out the breaking news and what good things you've been doing up there?
Well, I think that, to start out to say I is really a misnomer. There's been so many wonderful people over time that have really have been so dedicated and little tiny steps forward and, sometimes some giant steps backwards, but everyone seems to be wanting to go in the right direction. We had a pro se today. We filed pro se in the United States court here in New Hampshire. And we filed a pro se suit against the Secretary of State Scanlon in regards to retention of records, in specific to the voting machines, the LHS Dominion voting machines, memory cards. In the past, what has happened is the memory card is the programmable card for people who are unaware that gets programmed. The company LHS is a private contractor and the software that they use is proprietary. So that software is not auditable at all. They program it. We think it's programmed somewhere in the United States. We don't know actually where the cards are programmed, but the memory cards are programmed. They're sent to the clerks of each town, and the clerks go through a process of which they enter the memory cards along on an actual schedule, depending on what the memory card number is, and they test it in a machine. Mm-hmm. At the end of the election, those memory cards, according at direction of the Secretary of State, are immediately, the keyword there is immediately, unless there is an audit or something in that town or a recount, those memory cards are sent back to LHS. So what's the problem with that? The United States government, through HAVA and Help America Vote Act and others, requires that it's called 42 U.S.C. 701 is a retention of election records. And those election records have to be for 2 years. And along the way here in New Hampshire, for some reason, we decided not to adhere to that for a very long time.
So isn't that the 22 months, they started doing that because our machines are older and they don't have any more memory cards. So they slid that in that, we need them for the next election. So it's okay. Don't worry about it. We're just going to slip that through because what we want is more important.
So what happens, especially in a federal election, although it happens in state elections all the time and perhaps shouldn't have happened, but in a federal election, right, we're on different rules. Right. And the federal election requires this, and it hasn't been done in 2020. And now in 2024, especially the presidential election. So what we're trying to do is hold the Secretary of State accountable to the federal law. And that's what we filed today. It's called the writ of mandamus. It is basically an action to tell the court that, and for them to act according to the law. It's not a lawsuit, it's a writ of mandamus. We're asking them to do their job, basically. And I'll be quiet here for a little bit and let you talk.
And if I could just intercede, Jocelyn, and Al, it's so amazing that you're doing that because Jocelyn, don't forget the lawsuit that we all worked on too, where we tried to sue them for deleting those memory cards. Remember, we sued every town clerk in the state of New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
So we were told that we had no standing, and I actually thought Doris from Nashua had a great who has standing? If we don't have standing, then who does? Because they clearly broke the law. So I'm really happy that what Al filed is completely different than a lawsuit, because he's actually saying, all right, well, you don't want to argue about who has standing, but here, you're going to follow the law. We're going to make you follow the law. So thank you, Al. That is amazing to hear. I was really excited when Brenda told me about it. And I think that's so amazing, because those memory cards are very, very important. And, they, like Jocelyn said, they are very expensive, but they're very important to keep for 22 months. And don't forget that it's against both laws. It's against federal and state. It's not just federal that it's against the law. It's against the law for both.
Correct. And the excuses that they have all the time, remembering when we all got together and we were working with this with, our secret guy there, Ivan. And, we tried to put this together. We got evidence from everywhere. And they just kept, like you said, standing, which the courts are still doing. We're American citizens. We're citizens of whatever state you're bringing this forward in. On that alone, we have standing. Oh, but you have to have injury. You got to have ongoing injury. So by Al doing this, he has totally shoved that to the side and gone directly to the issue that you cannot send these memory cards back to LHS. They cannot be rewritten for the next election, which is our town elections. That's BS. They have to be preserved, and they have to be preserved in the machines, in the town, and not taken out. Go ahead, Al.
So here's a really interesting point. What the Secretary of State in the past has indicated, I can't speak for him, is that they have recently, after 2020 and Maryland's, push and Wyndham on the great work that they've done, her and AJ, and a lot of other people. But they will claim that they have an exact copy moving forward now. And here's what I say. When I read the law really carefully, there's nothing about a copy. It didn't say a copy of a record or a copy. It doesn't say that. Second of all, my argument will be, if it's the case, and I have an opportunity to do it, is that, Mrs. Jones shot Mr. Jones. Okay, when you go to court, you say to the judge, Your Honor, we only have a copy of the gun that Mr. Jones used? No, because that's not evidence, clearly, because anything can be, that's hearsay, not evidence. So, I believe elections and our ballots and everything else is evidence, and it should be evidence. It should be taken care of as evidence and defined as evidence, and no longer just defined as a document or a record. It is evidence.
Wow. Really, really well said. And you're absolutely right. If they don't protect these, they're going to be written over. But don't we have the issue of Harry Hursty, who came to the recount and said, "Oh, you just follow the rules, blah blah blah," stuck it in, and everything was erased. So we had a fake recount. He erased all that information, but oh, wait a minute, Jocelyn, we got the tally tape. Marilyn likes when I call them tally tapes, my ticker tapes. I didn't know what to call them, so I never did it before. Oh, we've got the tally tapes. Yeah, but that just spews out the garbage that's on the memory card with the algorithm. So yeah, you preserved the lie, and then you destroyed what made it. So it's absolute insanity.
So I think this is sorry.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that this was a good segue into, the next major announcement, if you guys are ready for it.
I was just going to say that. Absolutely. So
this is a big deal, not as big a deal as Al's, but to me, to New Hampshire, it will be a very big deal as well. But, we filed a lawsuit against Chris Sununu and the Gestapo state troopers. So we filed it 2 days ago. We have a civil rights 1983 violation lawsuit that was filed. We have a docket number. We're really, really excited about it. AJ, pull up the lawsuit. So there's there's two different lawsuits. So Frank and Kathy are on their own lawsuit. And then these are the people on my lawyer's lawsuit. And it's the same lawyer that is suing Jovan. And so, want to know what? Jovan was like meant to be. It was meant to be for that to happen because we would never have had this attorney. So, because we couldn't find one that would file for us against the state and the Gestapo, against Sununu and the Gestapo. So it was like a blessing in disguise. So, I just want to say who is on this lawsuit. It's me, my husband, AJ, my Dean, my son, who was 4 at the time, just turned 4. He was 2 weeks into being 4. John Schmidt, Therese Grinnell, and Monica. So we're all on the lawsuit, and we are filing a 1983 civil rights violation against, and I'll say the plaintiffs are State of New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu and New Hampshire State Police John Doe's 1 through 100. So,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So remind people, so this is about the Noble 9 that almost 2 years ago to the date, you had gone to a meeting with Chris Sununu and the executive council. They had moved it to a larger facility because we all are using our constitutional rights to find out what they're talking about and hear what they're saying and speaking up on it. And so it was up at the police academy. I didn't go to that one. I couldn't make it. And they had, put a curtain up so everybody was contained in one area, and everybody went that had been going to all the meetings, and you were all sitting there quietly. And then all of a sudden you start seeing all these little signals coming from the governor, and we're like, whoa, is he having like a seizure or something? What's going on? Next thing you know, we've got state troopers coming. Well, I have to announce the state troopers were all throughout the room, and it was probably like 2 to 1, 3 to 1. It was ridiculous. And all of a sudden they start grabbing people and arresting them for absolutely no reason. I think Therese said amen out loud after the Pledge of Allegiance, and oh boy, they were on her. And then next thing it's you and AJ, and your poor 4-year-old son is sitting there going, what is happening to my mom and my dad? He's 4 years old. And they just started arresting 9 people, and that's how you got the Noble 9.
Yep.
And, I just want to say that, this was a blessing for us. It came together last minute, and it was just, it was meant to be. And we're really, really excited that we finally get justice and some sort of justice. And, our lawyer's fantastic. Jocelyn, I'll send you and Al the lawsuit. It's a fabulous lawsuit. He did a really good job. It's the same lawyer for Jovan. He filed the Jovan lawsuit for us back in July to get our money back from that as well. So I'm really, really excited to see what happens with this lawsuit. And
I'm absolutely excited. I'm excited to finally get justice. We definitely deserve justice. My 7-year-old son deserves justice. What he saw that day is absolute tragedy. What he witnessed with his mom and his dad being arrested. It definitely scarred his image of what he thinks about police officers, which is a shame because when we first brought him into the room, he high-fived every single state trooper that he saw. He absolutely loved the police officers. And then lo and behold, he saw us get arrested. He watched Kathleen be slammed to the ground and injure her shoulder. That really, I look back on that day and I have very little regret for what I did. I watched the Gestapo come in and take my neighbors. And I said something about it. And I said something about it when the governor had the meeting paused. So I'm 100% in the right, and I have no shame in my game whatsoever. I think as an American, I did exactly what an American should have done in that moment. Really, it's the justice that my son deserves, and he absolutely deserves it.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
If I could jump in for just a second here. It's so interesting that AJ, Marilyn, and you look at, our experience today at the court, there are so many people around us that have been so helpful, right? I mean, we can't find a lawyer in New Hampshire to help us. How crazy is that?
Yep.
I mean, hundreds, we've gone through, asked hundreds to help us. People say, why do you do this pro se? We can't find anybody to even help us. But who does help us are just some wonderful people who go ahead of us, like the Dan Richards, the Brenda Towns, all the wonderful people that, Linda Brown. There's so many, Deborah, I can't name them all. I'll leave people out and I'll feel terrible about it. So there's just so many amazing people who just every day get up, and it's, everyone is sometimes dejected. We all are, right? Because we forget it's the power of one. Sometimes we forget that so much. It's the power of one. And, I think it was the prophet Timothy who said, fight the good fight, go the distance, and never give up your faith, right? I think that's what we're all kind of doing here.
And no weapon formed against us shall prosper, because the man in charge is God, and he's giving us our suits of armor to go forward. And even though we've all, since 2020 have gone through this, to try to take one step forward, to take 10 steps back, 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. We keep doing this dance, but now look at us, pro se, we're doing the best that we can. We don't have any other options. And, again, right from God to give you the right lawyer to be able to help you go forward with these cases is going to help everybody. And it's just another, we're like little bee stings, because that's what we do. We just keep stinging them and say, you work for us. You can't do this. You've gotten away with it for decades, but no more, because we are awake. And I want
to say one more thing. So this might turn into a class action lawsuit, because we're actually looking into, everybody who was there, they were silenced. They were, what's the word? Chilled. Yep. So they had a chilling effect. And I have proof of that. I have emails that I still haven't read, not on purpose, but my emails were blowing up at that time, So like, I still have emails that I'm finding randomly that are like, how I never want to go to another meeting again. I can't believe that happened to you. I sat there and watched you get arrested in front of your son. Like, I can't believe that. And I have those emails dated from that time frame. And I have a lot of people between all my messenger apps like that. So when someone brought it up to the attorney the other day, and he's like, you want to know what? That's actually a really good idea. We should do a class action lawsuit because those people were chilled. They were chilled, and they deserve, justice too, because we shouldn't be scared to hold our representatives accountable. We're Americans. That's what our job is. Yep. And we lost that throughout the years. And, I make sure that my kids come to this stuff with me so that they understand that they're not as blinded as I was, right? Yep. Because I never even voted in a small election. My kids will probably never miss a vote ever. They'll probably be very educated kids on politics, but I went into it completely blinded. And, so I think it's really important that we educate our kids and we bring our kids to these meetings, and we're not chilled and we're not scared to say, hey, you're not allowed to do that. Like what Al's doing. And, hey, you're not allowed to erase those memory cards. And he's absolutely right. I mean, we sued every town clerk. So if they want to send them back again, I want to expand on Al's lawsuit or writ of mandamus. Yep. We'll sue you again. Yeah. And this time we'll figure out how to get standing, because somebody has standing, and we will figure it out, and we're never going to quit. And like Al said, there's a good group of patriots. Jocelyn, you're one of them. You're amazing. Al, you're one of them. Brenda, everybody that Al named, and then some. And, New Hampshire has a great, great network, and we're not ever going to give up. And even though we've been blacklisted to Florida, we still spend a lot of time in New Hampshire. We've never sold any of our properties in New Hampshire, and we're there very, very often. And, my heart is always in New Hampshire. I still fight for only New Hampshire, and I will always fight for New Hampshire.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on, and I certainly want to encourage you, get back in touch with me as soon as you hear anything. I know Al's they're supposed to get an answer in 10 days. And I can't wait to hear. They're going to get back to you pretty quick. So keep us posted, and we'll do some more breaking news. Blessings to you all. And thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The lack of contracts in these areas, or the lack of family planning services, will have negative health consequences for those who need these services. It will result in increased unintended pregnancies, increased teen pregnancies, and negative birth outcomes. Is that correct?
That is likely.
And I understand that some counselors here have indicated that they needed additional information about these contracts. Have you answered all of the counselors' questions at this point?
We believe we have answered all questions that have been asked to the department.
Okay, and still these contracts are not being brought back?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on this item or any items as part of 21 through 27F? Oh, Councilor Gatsas.
Thank you, Governor. Procedural question. How many times can contracts come before this council? How do we say no?
As many times as the governor wants to put them on the agenda.
I would request the governor put the family planning contracts on the agenda at every meeting until they are approved.
We'll be here.
They can. The governor says.
Can we fix that in the mock?
Nope. Sorry. Constitution. Yes, Councilor Stevens.
In regards to 27E, the Maximus contract, there's a fee, a one-time go-live charge. We've had an extensive, long-term contract with this provider. Why are we getting hit with, a six-figure go-live fee?
Thank you, Councilor. This particular go-live fee is in reference to this particular activity in which we are working to figure out, work with our data to ensure that folks have had their second dose of vaccine. As the Councilor Wheeler asked earlier, there is a little bit of a spread between first doses and second doses. We know that in the early rollout, there may have been some data that was not captured, and so Maximus is working closely with the department to ensure that those folks get their second doses. And with this, there was some very specific training that was required to ensure that the call center was working with our vaccination program to ensure confidentiality and to understand the technical aspects of this particular task.
Did we try to attempt to negotiate on this price?
We did negotiate.
On that fee?
I'm unaware specifically on this fee, but we did negotiate the overall contract price.
Councilor Gatsas.
Thank you, Governor. I think this council was pretty clear about paying upfront fees. Probably 3 meetings ago, or the last time we met, or the time before that. But it was clear that we didn't approve of contracts that paid upfront fees. Love to hear your answer.
The funding for this, they will invoice us when they set up.
So it's a cost reimbursement for the setup. It's not an upfront payment.
Well, there aren't many companies that I know of out there that are public companies that people will give them a contract if they're paying up front for a setup. This is a setup fee, and we're paying them whether it's coming back later. That's just the same thing this council said no to.
I don't believe it is. What the council said no to was an upfront advance payment to set up. What we had talked about was that most of these companies should be able to invest in the upfront costs without us giving an advance payment. So what we did is we changed our tactic with our negotiations so that they are required to do the upfront investment and then invoice the state afterwards their cost to set up programs. This is, I would say, pretty typical to have your costs reimbursed when you're setting up a new program. So we can either do it on a one-time payment on an invoice, or they can roll it into their monthly invoice. Either way, they're going to have their costs reimbursed, especially when they're setting up new programs in the state of New Hampshire. They have to hire people, do all of those things, maybe rent a building, that type of thing.
Well, yes. I can tell you that I would never approve this contract. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It's still paying for their setup, which is wrong. And this council shouldn't be doing that. We can do it whatever way you want to do it.
So the council is against reimbursing companies for their costs to start a contract?
Correct. If they're providing a service and the service is $3, then they should increase their service price to make the accommodations for those setup prices. Because that's what most companies that are private companies do.
So you would rather see their setup cost integrated into their monthly invoicing instead of a one-time invoice cost after they set up?
I'm not looking to pay for their setup cost at all. You can twist the language whatever way
I'm
you want
not
to
twisting
twist
the
it.
language, Counselor.
What I'm looking for is for them to do business as most companies in this country do. If you want our business, come in and do the service.
If I may, when we set up a $50 million MMIS system with a lot of upfront hardware, it takes years. We pay for that hardware as they go before they bill us for the management of the system. To be fair, we don't pay for them upfront, but as they put in the servers and all this kind of stuff, it's multi-million dollars. We do pay. So there, I'm just saying there is a precedent here for especially when you're dealing with the tax system. They put it in, they send us an invoice, we move on. They put it in, and then we get to the monthly billing for the programmatic fees. I understand that you can do it, you can try to integrate that, but
I agree. I think that the impression that we were under during the initial conversation was that the council had a problem with paying money upfront before they started the contract. So the way we strategized was that we would have the company pay for those startup fees themselves and invoice them to us either.
Okay, we're gonna take a pause here.
What are the charges? Why are they being arrested?
Stop it, they know they're gonna arrest you.
Under arrest.
Stop it, AJ, just go, your baby's sitting right here.
They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. JR, they did nothing. They were sitting there. They did nothing. They just came and took them. They did nothing. They took Teresa. They killed lady. What are you doing, sir? Go in and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is going on?
Hey.
What am I doing enforcing this? Go in and say.
So that was my directive to the commissioner. If we want to see it in an even different way, I suppose we can go back and ask, but we do have a lot of contracts we do this way. But that's on me. I thought we were getting rid of prepay and just making sure that the hardware was
Right, we paid $1 for this, the invoice says we paid $1 for this, and we reimbursed. So that is the way we structured it. Now, if they want to, if the council would like us to take all of the startup costs and put them in individual invoices or subsequent invoices, we can do that, but I don't think a lot of companies are going to purchase hardware, buildings, and all the programmatic needs of big $50 million programs and not expect to get reimbursed for it.
Councilor Warmington?
This structure is actually very typical for these kinds of contracts.
She did nothing.
Commissioner Goulet would probably tell us that with respect to all sorts of IT contracts. And I think the risk of advancing money up front is that we could advance money and then never get the product. But in this case, the way the department has structured this, we are not advancing money. They are actually incurring costs and then being reimbursed for costs. So it's sort of a service plus cost contract, which is totally typical, to my understanding, in the industry. Is that correct, Commissioner?
Yes.
Councilor Gagne.
Thank you, Governor. I think Commissioner Goulet would say that they're not providing a service